settled in, we'll start with Paul here in the front.
Coach, even though Tolu's a veteran of college basketball and pretty much done everything, and you kind of know what to expect, but I know we only had a small sample size of his play the other night, but just from the outside looking in, it looked like he's expanded his game a little bit in the post. You've seen him in practice. You've seen him in the off season. What's different in your mind comparing his game this year to last year?
I'd say it's too early to tell if it's going to be that much different. You know, I know he's a tireless worker, and he's constantly trying to, you know, like you said, add to his game, improve his range. You know, again, one game's too small of a sample size, like you said, but he's just so comfortable, you know, out there because of his experience. I thought he showed pretty good patience for the most part to wait for the space to be cleared for him to go to work or make the appropriate pass. He had the one pass that he threw it to the other team, but other than that, I thought he was real comfortable out there. But we'll see, you know, if he can continue to build on that and, like you said, show some expansion, you know, of his game going forward.
We'll go second row middle to John, and then we'll go head down to Justin.
Happy New Year, Chris.
Happy New Year.
So I know obviously the big return that everyone was talking about with Tolu, and I know he got 19 minutes that night and looked good, but just, you know, as a guy just coming back and, you know, SEC play starting right around the corner as well, is there some kind of a return to play plan in terms of gradually increasing his minutes or workload, or is there kind of anything off the court that maybe you can, you know, shed light on for us?
No, I haven't been given any sort of limitations that way. Prior to him playing in the game against Bethune-Cookman, he had been basically released from minute restriction or rep restriction in practice. So he was full go a couple days prior to that particular game. And I didn't have any minute restriction, like I said, that was given to me from the trainers or the doctors. But they knew that, you know, he wasn't going to, you know, play 35 minutes or anything like that. I mean, that wasn't what I wanted him to do. It worked out really well. Going forward, you know, we talked about it after the game on Sunday, you know, how that looks and how his minute distribution goes with Jimmy and him and the other guys that, you know, play that position. Time will tell.
Go ahead.
Going back to the start, how you guys started SEC play last year, what did just you and the returning guys maybe learn from that experience about the importance of starting off in this conference on the right foot, just because of how deep the league is?
Play better. You know, it's always comes back to how you play, you know, in all areas of the game. And, you know, everyone looks at their schedule and says, oh, you know, we got a tough out the chute, or, you know, ours is hard in the middle. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to play. And this year's no different. You know, we're focused on South Carolina on the road, but certainly we understand the first 4 or 5 games, and they all look pretty menacing from where I sit. But, you know, in terms of what we learned, I mean, again, like, everybody's good. There's so much riding on each and every game. And the way I look at it, it's just what wonderful opportunities, you know, for our team, particularly this year's team, to, you know, have chances at big wins, and they're all over the place if you look up and down the schedule. So, again, my perspective is to look at it as that. It's a challenge, obviously, but what great opportunities that we have before us.
We'll go to coach's right to Benjamin and then back to Paul.
Yeah, so South Carolina, a team that probably has, you know, exceeded some of the expectations set for them in the preseason. So what kind of challenges is that matchup going to present for you on Saturday?
Yeah, maybe in the outside world, I don't think they probably exceeded their own expectations just from being around Lamont and listening to him, you know, at the media day and even since then. You know, they had the one loss is all they've had on the road against Clemson, which I'm assuming is a rivalry game for them. And otherwise, they have an unblemished record, and they're a really good basketball team. You know, they've added some key pieces to their team through the portal. Seems like they're meshing very well. The thing that jumps out to me right away is just how well and how many guys can shoot the three. I mean, they have 5 guys on the floor for the most part that all shoot the three, and they shoot it, you know, pretty proficiently. So that's going to spread you out. And then they got the guards out front with the transfer Cooper from Minnesota, and then the returner Michi Johnson, who's leading them in scoring. But I think they have 4 guys in double figures, so they got balance that way. And their veteran group, they got older guys, which you'll see a lot more, obviously, with the portal, et cetera. But they're playing well, and it's going to be a challenge.
Go ahead, Paul.
We saw it last year with Shaq coming off the bench and then going to the starting lineup. We've seen that this year too. Do you see any difference in his game when he starts as compared to coming off the bench?
This year, maybe. Again, pretty small sample size. He's played in 11 games this year, and I don't know if he started, 6 or 7 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I don't necessarily think there's probably a big difference that way, but, we just talked about him before I came down here, and, I believe that he's got more in the tank. I think he needs to help us more in a lot of facets of the game. He's such a dynamic athlete and player, and I feel like sometimes he's got this personality that we need to change a little bit. He embodies our team a little bit, that sometimes I think, we compete harder in practice than we do in games, and I don't understand that when they get to go against someone with a different colored jersey on rather than, their teammates. And we harped on that a lot after the game against Bethune-Cookman, and Shaq was one of those guys that I thought has a higher level compete that he's capable of on both ends of the floor, for that matter. And but I think he's a key for us moving forward. I think he's got more to offer our team on a daily basis, on a nightly basis when we play, and hopefully we can get him going.
Second row to Danny Pita, coach's right.
Coach, you mentioned South Carolina's record, and there's Ole Miss is undefeated, and you got a couple other teams that are just 2 losses. What's your opinion of the league as we enter the conference schedule?
Yeah, it's about what I expected. On paper, I didn't think that maybe they were going to be as top heavy, like last year. But certainly, we've got some really good teams, this year. But I thought that, the teams that maybe weren't in the top 3 or 4 from last year had closed the gap a little bit, and more of them, had moved up the chain, if you will. And, that's been the case. I mean, there's just a lot of depth. There's a lot of teams that have put themselves in a good position heading into SEC play, and even though I'm sitting here talking about the opportunities that are ahead of us, I think everyone's probably feeling that way. Wow, there's so many teams that have good numbers and good analytics and good nets, et cetera, that almost every single night you're going to have an opportunity to add to your resume, if you will. And certainly you got to go one at a time, like we all will, and that's all we'll talk about. But at the same time, there's going to be a ton of opportunities for everybody all year long.
Go ahead, John.
I feel like usually for a team that's kind of playing well going into conference play and then gets like a big piece back to the rotation, it could maybe complicate a few things from a minutes perspective or just kind of a flow of things. But it seems like with Tolu, it's kind of the opposite. What's it kind of been like ingraining him back into kind of what you're trying to do, and how has he kind of been?
Yeah, he's been great. Like I said earlier, in his progression back, when he had the restriction on his minutes, there was, some, I wouldn't say terse, that's too strong of a word, but some conversations about, hey, you need to be out, so-and-so needs to be in, and, he'd shrug his shoulders and come on, man, so we went through that phase, which we expected. Both me and Andrew Kegley were in cahoots together of making sure that, we didn't rush him back because he wanted to be out there all the time, and that just wasn't what the doctor ordered, and it wouldn't have been smart. So once we got through that, it's been pretty seamless. No one ever really asked me about it, but Jimmy Bell is such a wonderful human being, and is probably as encouraging about Tolu as anybody. He knows it's only going to help him as well to have another guy, that can be in there when he's not in there, that's leaning on him and pounding them and wearing people out and doing all the things that Jimmy's capable of doing. But it's not something that we've had big powwows about as a team, or even me and Tolu. Like, it's just let's go. Let's just go compete, and it's all been really good.
Go ahead.
Obviously, there's always a lot of excitement for a team to start conference play. Do you feel even more excitement this year with Tolu working his way back as well?
I'm glad he's back. Like I mentioned it after the game. that's what we anticipated, once he decided to return, that, we were going to have an anchor, a guy that's been there, done that, an all-SEC performer back, with a bunch of other guys back with him. And then that was a big blow for us, for our program, for everybody in it. And, but nobody cares. We just try to keep the train moving forward. And now that he's back, certainly, it's exciting. It's exciting for all of us. And, hopefully he can continue to feel good and, feel confident, coming back. And he's, again, it's not like he hasn't been through, the gauntlet that we're about to face. So that's a good thing for us as well.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go back to Justin.
Chris, going back to what you were talking about with the depth of the league and those teams closing the gap towards the top, does that make it easier or harder to keep the guys from overlooking certain teams and opponents, throughout the SEC schedule?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a problem. We're not in position to be overlooking anybody on our schedule, and I know from the coaches on down, we're going to continue to treat every game like it's a Super Bowl in terms of how we prepare. And but at the same time, when you get into SEC play, like everywhere, everyone feels that way when they get in their own conference. It's just different. It's just different when you're trying to compete for, a conference championship, and everybody starts out at scratch. What they were is one thing, non-conference record, et cetera, and that still stays with you. But it's just a different portion of the year, and our season is so long, and there's just a different bounce in your step, when you head into conference play. And I just can't imagine that ever being a problem for us.
Anything else? We'll go back to Ben to wrap us up.
I know Rutgers was essentially a true road game, but is there some extra hunger for this group to go back out on the road, given that the one true road game you guys played in non-conference play didn't go super well?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. Yesterday was a day off. Here shortly we'll reconvene and get together and watch some video and obviously have practice at some point this afternoon. But, I don't think we'll talk about that too much, other than what it takes to win on the road. And we've always prided ourselves on being a team that can win away from home, and especially in true road environments. And hopefully this team will be no different. And with the experience that we have and guys that have played as much college basketball as they have on this particular team, hopefully they'll understand how hard it is, but at the same time how important it is to win games on the road.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.